A uno de nuestros webinars del mes de octubre. El día de hoy vamos a tener con nosotros a Héctor Gonzalo Miranda Plaza, que es un destacado estratega en sostenibilidad en América Latina, con casi 20 años de experiencia impulsando a la región hacia un futuro resiliente y carbono neutral. Como gerente general de Regenerativa y asesor de GNFZ, promueve estrategias a gran escala de ESG y Net Cero. Ha liderado más de 200 proyectos certificados LEEDs y fundó el Perú Green Building Council y ha representado al país en foros internacionales como APEC y el World Green Building Council. Héctor Gonzalo Miranda Plaza is a leading sustainability strategist in Latin America with nearly 20 years of experience driving the region toward a resilient and zero-carbon future, a general manager of Regenerativa and advisor at the GNFZ. He has promoted large-scale ESG at Net Zero strategies. He has led over 200 LEED certified projects, founded the Peru Green Building Council, and represented Peru in global forums such as APEC and World Green Building Council. Adelante, Héctor.
Muchísimas gracias. Es un honor estar aquí con ustedes por esta oportunidad de poder presentar. Sara, Sri, David, es un placer estar con ustedes y con todos los asistentes. Voy a empezar compartiéndoles un video para entrar en motivación.
En la costa sur del Perú, entre el cielo, el mar y la arena, existe un lugar privilegiado que mira cada día al horizonte. Les presentamos el Plan Director Lomas del Mar. Hoy, este condominio ya es un espacio lleno de vida, donde las familias disfrutan, se conectan y sobre todo viven con la vista más hermosa, el mar. Aquí ya se cuida el recurso más valioso, el agua, convirtiendo el agua del mar en vida y reciclando cada gota para cuidar sus jardines. Pero hoy da un paso histórico y está listo para ir más allá, convertirse en la primera comunidad de playas certificada como Net Cero en Perú. Net Cero es generar nuestra propia energía limpia. Es cuidar cada gota de agua. Es transformar residuos en vida. Es vivir de forma regenerativa y responsable. Más de 200 familias estamos decidiendo liderar el cambio. Y hoy, este condominio se convertirá en modelo replicable para todo el Perú. Este proyecto es solo el comienzo. Hay cientos de comunidades como esta que pueden seguir el mismo camino. Lomas del Mar es un modelo, un faro, un llamado. Transformar nuestras comunidades es transformar el planeta. Es ahora y empieza aquí, en Lomas del Mar.
¿Me escuchan?
Sí, Héctor, te escuchamos.
Bueno, en Latinoamérica, el sector inmobiliario tiene un rol clave en la lucha contra el cambio climático. Y desde nuestro ecosistema de soluciones sostenibles en regenerativa, estamos demostrando que transformar edificios en activos verdes no solo es posible, sino rentable y urgente. Nuestro portafolio verde de soluciones es un círculo virtuoso que integra criterios ambientales, sociales y de gobernanza, con herramientas líderes como la certificación LEED, operaciones y mantenimiento para la eficiencia ambiental, la certificación WELL para el bienestar social, la evaluación GRESB para la gobernanza y la calificación del portafolio, y la certificación Net Cero para cumplir los compromisos climáticos de las 0 emisiones netas. Como vieron en el video, alcanzar las 0 emisiones netas no es una utopía, es una meta alcanzable, medible y escalable. Y lo más poderoso es que podemos lograrlo juntos, desde nuestras comunidades, nuestros barrios, nuestras propias casas. Nuestra plataforma digital permite avanzar paso a paso, sin barreras técnicas, reconociendo cada logro. El primer paso es claro: evaluar con el Protocolo Internacional de Gases de Efecto Invernadero y establecer metas graduales en energía, agua, residuos y emisiones. Este camino no solo transforma edificios, transforma culturas, hábitos y ciudades. Hoy más que nunca tenemos la oportunidad de ser protagonistas del cambio. Los invito a imaginar el impacto que podemos generar si cada uno de nosotros decide actuar. Porque la sostenibilidad no es solo una responsabilidad, es una oportunidad para liderar, innovar y dejar huella. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Héctor. Thank you so much, Héctor. Let's continue with the next speakers, who are Mahesh Ramanujan and Sriranjani Srinivasan and David Douek. Sarah, I think we're next with Mahesh, right?
Yes, I'm going to cover this for now, and then I believe we'll have David doing a case study after. So hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Merricks, and I am the Chief Strategy Officer for the Global Network for Zero. I co-founded GNFZ in 2021 with Mahesh Ramanujan to help accelerate the transition to a zero emissions world and to empower people and organizations to take measurable climate action. Thank you to Ecuador Green Building Council for hosting this webinar. CEES is our official partner for driving net zero transformation in Ecuador. I would also like to thank Héctor Gonzalo Miranda Plaza, our local GNFZ advisor in South America, and Dr. David Douek, who will share a case study, as I mentioned. Many of you may know Mahesh from our time leading the U.S. Green Building Council. I was Mahesh's chief of staff at USGBC. When Mahesh joined, LEED was in 35 countries, and by the time he left, we had reached 182. It was from that position, growing LEED globally, where we witnessed extraordinary leadership from the Latin American region. Today, I'm not going to spend time on why green building and decarbonization matters. You already know that. Instead, I want to talk about what's next: net zero. Here's where we stand globally with net zero. Only 0.23% of the world's buildings globally are net zero. Net zero buildings are projected to grow 29% annually through 2027, but we're facing a 70% shortfall in the number of low carbon buildings needed, and investor and tenant demand is rising. Reaching net zero by 2050 will require the buildings and construction industry to decarbonize 3 times faster over the next 30 years versus the previous 30. The next frontier is clear: designing, constructing, and retrofitting buildings to address all emissions, scope 1, 2, and 3. Today, we'll explore how Ecuador can lead this transition, how GNFZ helps remove barriers, and how companies like yours are already paving the way. Joining me today is also my colleague Sriranjani, who will demo our certification platform. Please drop any questions you have in the chat, and please don't be shy. We welcome all thoughts and feedbacks. With less than 5 years to meet the Paris Agreement's target, most net zero pledges are behind schedule, but the UN still says 1.5 degrees Celsius is still achievable if we move faster. Buildings are central to that transition, especially in Ecuador, where 65% of the population lives in cities. And across South America, 86% of people are projected to live in cities by 2030, creating urgent demand for sustainable urban planning and infrastructure. The good news is that every Latin American country has ratified the Paris Agreement, and many are accelerating their efforts. In 2023, Ecuador has updated its NDC to include an economy-wide GHG target promote renewable energy, and adopt a national policy for sustainable urban mobility. Targets include a 7% unconditional and 8% conditional GHG reduction by 2035 and maintaining an over 80% renewable energy share. Ecuador is also advancing land restoration, aiming to restore 500,000 hectares through protected areas, community forestry, and agroforestry, and cut methane emissions by 199 tons in early 2023 through food recovery programs. To address its energy crisis, Ecuador enacted the framework law to promote energy generation, encouraging private investment, self-generation, and transition from fossil fuels. The country also secured conservation funding through a debt for nature swap, supporting climate mitigation and adaptation. Progress is real, though challenges remain. The construction industry is forecasted to grow 3.8% in 2025, with a 4.6 average annual growth percentage through 2029, driven by infrastructure and renewable energy projects. Sustainable building materials are up 15% over 5 years, with greater use of certified wood, recycled concrete, and eco-friendly bricks. Research shows growing environmental awareness in the materials sector, with more focus on life cycle impacts and embodied energy. For Ecuador's building sector to reach its targets, it must double electrification from 45% in 2019 to 90% by 2050, while reducing fossil fuels used in buildings to below 10%. This means cutting energy demand through efficiency and passive design, while shifting to low carbon energy, especially clean electricity, bioenergy, and solar heating. Key actions include enforcing mandatory energy codes for new construction and updating these regularly, using climate-sensitive design and better envelopes to reduce cooling loads, replacing fossil fuel systems with heat pumps or solar heaters, scaling solar PV, solar thermal, and micro wind systems, retrofitting existing buildings to upgrade insulation, lighting, and controls, reducing embodied carbon in materials and construction, strengthening monitoring, verification, labeling, and certification to ensure real performance, where GNFC plays a key role, expanding financial incentives so developers can afford these upgrades, and setting bolder climate targets. The 7% reduction by 2035 is too modest for a 1.5 degrees Celsius pathway, and conditional targets depend heavily on external funding. Now that we've set the stage, I want to talk about what we're doing to support this transition at GNFC. We've created a platform and certification program designed to meet this moment. Our goal is simple: make net zero accessible, practical, and measurable for any building or business anywhere. GNFC supports buildings, portfolios, and organizations with a full suite of certification programs, a global network providing expert support, and a supportive community of climate leaders working to accelerate decarbonization efforts towards a zero emissions future. Our framework is grounded in years of market insights and global best practices and is built to simplify net zero implementation by eliminating the complexity and costs that holds projects back. One of the biggest challenges we see, buildings and businesses lack credible net zero transition plans, and implementation is slow because leaders don't have the data to make the business case. That's what we set out to fix. We take a 0 to 0 approach, providing both the top and middle and bottom of the market with a solution they can use to either take the next step to net zero or to just get started. For instance, buildings that have already achieved high levels of sustainability performance can use our platform and process to take the next step and tackle their scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. But there are also no prerequisites, and we meet buildings and businesses where they are, recognizing progress at every step. This means that we enable buildings that have never pursued a green building program or businesses that are just getting started to put in place a plan and roadmap to transition their building, assets, or business to net zero. We currently offer 3 certification options for buildings, portfolios, and businesses. Our net zero certification for buildings provides a framework to demonstrate that buildings are designed, constructed, and operated to net zero by removing scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, generating more energy than they consume, saving more water than they use, reducing waste, and positively impacting the physical, mental, and social health of occupants. Here we offer 4 categories with 3 certifications under each. The definitions for each of these categories are on the screen, but emissions impacts scope 1, 2, and 3, energy impacts scope 1 and 2, and the last 2 categories of water and waste impact things beyond scope emissions. Now, under each of these categories, projects can earn 3 distinct certifications: a net zero design certification, a net zero construction certification, and a net zero operations certification. What makes GNFZ unique? Our certification is built on the GHG protocol, a widely used mechanism to measure scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. It's based on pure accounting and data. So unlike traditional certification, where emissions data may be obscured, GNFZ brings quantification of emissions reduced to the forefront. This enables clients to access, quantify, and extract emissions data for compliance with initiatives such as SBTI and GRI. Unlike most green building programs, there are no prerequisites. We meet every building where it is, whether you're just starting out or already on your way. Our incremental approach ensures every project can progress toward net zero. We're laser focused on emissions, not point accumulation. This empowers asset owners and project teams to implement the most cost-effective ways to cut emissions without chasing strategies that don't translate into emissions reductions. As a result, clients can optimize their investments, increase efficiency, and reach their targets faster. GNFZ ensures access to best-in-class expertise, making net zero goals achievable. Our platform supports compliance, future planning, and reporting to frameworks like SBTI and GRI, and is recognized by GRESB. GNFZ certification also addresses all 3 scopes and has an unparalleled focus on scope 3 compared to others. And because we follow the GHG protocol, our certifications more accurately account for embodied emissions. This is especially critical because embodied emissions are becoming an increasingly important in green building design and construction. They account for 11% of global carbon emissions, and as buildings become more energy efficient and their operational footprints decrease, this percentage is only expected to grow. From the design phase to construction to operations, we account for embodied carbon at every stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing what Mahesh has to tell us. So let's continue with the agenda of the day about our webinar, Net Zero Success Case Studies in Latin America, highlighting GNFZ certified projects in the region and the specific strategies they leverage to achieve net zero. And now I'm going to introduce David Douek, that is the founder and development director of the OTEC in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and a leading expert in sustainability and green building certification. He holds a PhD and an MSc in economics for the USP, along with degrees in architecture and business administration. With multiple international credentials, including lead fellow, WELL AP, and EDGE expert, he has overseen the certification of over 100 million square feet of real estate and collaborated with major global companies like Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, and Siemens. A frequent lecturer and publisher author, he actively contributes to technical committees and serves on the board of the IBPSA Brazil. David Douek es fundador y director de desarrollo de OTEC en Sao Paulo, Brasil, y un destacado experto en sostenibilidad y certificación de edificaciones verdes. Posee un doctorado y una maestría en economía por la USP, además de títulos en arquitectura y administración de empresas con múltiples acreditaciones internacionales, incluyendo Lead Fellow, WELL AP y EDGE Expert. Ha liderado la certificación de 100 millones de pies cuadrados de bienes raíces y ha colaborado con empresas globales como Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble y Siemens. Es conferencista frecuente, autor publicado y participa activamente en comités técnicos, además de formar parte del directorio de la IBPSA en Brasil. Adelante, David.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, mi presentación es en inglés, pero como dice, hablo un poquito de español, entonces me gustaría mucho de agradecer a todos, en especial a Ana Paula, Héctor, Sara, y Sriranjani y a todos los otros por quedarse conmigo ahora. Y bueno, voy a seguir con mi presentación en inglés también. So thank you everyone for joining me today. I want to thank you especially Mahesh, Sarah, Héctor, Sriranjani, Ana Paula, for giving me the opportunity to talk about Brazil's first global network for zero certified project, because for us this isn't just a milestone, it's a real world evidence that achievable, verifiable decarbonization is already taking root right here in South America and in Latin America as well. Well, you have so generously introduced me. I would only like to add that I have recently became one of the only consultants in South America to be a counselor of real estate. It's an institution founded in 1953 in the United States, and it only recognizes consultants with a lot of experience, reputation. So we are really proud of this achievement, and hopefully this is going to help us to work, with great consultants such as Héctor, and help develop the businesses throughout South America and in other regions as well. Well, I was introduced. I want to talk a little bit about OTEC. At OTEC, we've been at the forefront of sustainability consulting for nearly 2 decades, helping organizations across Brazil and Latin America cut emissions, boost ESG performance, and earn top-tier certifications. We are honored to be the global network for zero key implementation partner in Brazil, drawing on our deep experience to guide projects toward genuine, measurable decarbonization. Our team has fostered a vibrant local network linking organizations, consultants, and verifiers under a unified approach. We specialize in carbon footprint reduction, energy modeling, life cycle assessment, certifications consultancy, and ESG strategies, always with a focus on technical precision and real impact. Most excitingly, we recently partnered with LFRV lawyers to achieve Brazil's first global network for zero certification, collaborating closely with GNFZ to establish a new standard for operational net zero in the region. Our case study is LFRV, Limongi, França, Ricardino, and Valadão. They are a society of lawyers. So let me tell you a little about them before we move forward. They are a respected Brazilian law firm known for its client-focused, values-driven work. They emphasize integrity, transparency, and innovation in delivering high-quality legal services, all while upholding strong ethical and environmental standards. Their pursuit of the global network for zero operations emission certification showcases their true commitment to responsibility, openness, and leading by example in sustainability. So first, it's highly important, I believe, to answer why Global Network for Zero, why they chose GNFZ to pursue. So as they are a respected Brazilian law firm, known for its client-focused values, they realized that they wanted their day-to-day operations to reflect their core mission, acting with ethics, efficiency, and accountability, including how they impact the environment. And therefore, there are 3 key reasons that drove their choice to go for Global Network Zero certification. It aligned perfectly with their values of responsibility and innovation. They saw the credibility that comes from independent third-party verifications, and it was a way to contribute meaningfully to Brazil's growing decarbonization efforts. So regarding the process itself, the journey unfolded step by step, starting with registration and building toward full certification. Here is how it progressed. The registration date was Global Network for Zero was in April 27, 2024. Then in May 4, they earned the assessment certificate. On May 7, they secured the Net Zero Plan certificate. And then on May 30, they received the carbon offset certificate. And finally, on June 2, they were awarded the full Global Network for Zero certification. And this structured timeline kept everything on track and built momentum along the way. So regarding the journey, it's highly important to consider that a solid foundation starts with understanding your emissions. We conducted comprehensive GHG inventory aligned with GHG protocol. This involved monthly data collection on energy use, waste, transport, and purchased goods. Using a digital platform, we track scopes 1 through 3 with real-time dashboards for clear visibility. This baseline quantification made it easy to compare performance year over year and spot opportunities for improvement. Regarding the plan, with the inventory in hand, we crafted a clear decarbonization plan. It was built around 6 key pillars: energy, renewables, operations, mobility, culture, and reporting. The goal, to reduce emissions by at least 10% by 2030. We scheduled milestone reviews every 12 months, syncing them with Brazil's Sistema Brasileiro de Comércio de Emissões de Gás de Efeito Estufa. It's the Brazilian system for trading carbon emissions, and also the International Sustainability Standards Board, ISSB, disclosure cycles. This roadmap is flexible and replicable, perfect for even complex multi-site operations. Now, let's talk about putting the plan into action. They introduced a remote work policy to cut down on commuting emissions, switch to digital workflows, slashing paper usage by 70%, engage the team through fun, sustainability workshops, and employee challenges. And for any remaining emissions, we offset them via verified carbon compensation projects. To keep it accountable, LFRV formed a dedicated Net Zero committee. The data flowed into the Global Network for Zero for real-time monitoring and transparency, with independent auditors verifying everything to meet Global Network for Zero standards. Finally, before receiving the certificate, we still had to eliminate some carbon emissions, and therefore LFRV invested in high-quality verified carbon credits from projects tied to Brazil National Registry and UNFCCC guidelines. This led to their proud achievement, becoming Brazil's first Global Network for Zero certified organization on June 2, 2025. In their own words, the Global Network for Zero certification is not just a nod. It's the validation of a technical nitty-gritty process that aligns with our values. Working with OTEC was a watershed. Net Zero became part of our fabric and service. Well, finally, as you can see, the process is quite straightforward. This law firm was our first case, and now we are already carrying out other projects. Some of them are pretty large, just for example, a large distribution center in Brazil as well. But we had some lessons learned from the process that I would like to share with you as well. So every journey teaches valuable lessons, and this one was no exception. First, Global Network for Zero helped create a leadership-driven culture, sharpening focus on carbon awareness and emission reduction goals. Second, certifying each phase along the way, let us celebrate progress and share wins with staff and the wider community. Third, once set up, the process integrated seamlessly into daily operations, making recertification feel natural and ongoing. Fourth, third-party verification built real trust and credibility, amplifying the overall impact. Looking ahead, LFRV is committed to building on this success by improving data accuracy and further digitalizing processes, increasing renewable energy adoption in their offices, and preparing for annual Global Network for Zero recertification, sharing their story to motivate other Brazilians, organizations to join the movement as well. Well, in the end, what I'd like to share as well, that certification delivers visibility, traceability, and better management, but its true power is in building credibility and trust. It proves your organization is walking the talk on sustainability, opening doors to investors, clients, and a brighter future. So thank you so much for your time, and I'd love to hear your questions or thoughts in the end of this conference. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias a todos.
Muchas gracias, David. Thank you so much, David. We're going to continue with our webinar. Please don't forget to leave your questions, just as David said, in the chat, in either Spanish or English. We're going to read them at the end of the webinar. Por favor, no se olviden dejar todas sus preguntas en el chat, en español o en inglés. Al final del webinar las vamos a leer. So we're going to continue, and last but not least, we have Sriranjani Srinivasan, is the Associate Vice President of Technical Development at the GNFZ. She leads research and project implementation, focusing on expanding the network's educational and technical programs. Sriranjani Srinivasan es presidenta asociada del desarrollo técnico en GNFZ, supervisa la investigación y la ejecución de proyectos y programas con experiencias en ingeniería y sostenibilidad. Se enfoca en ampliar los recursos educativos e iniciativas técnicas de GNFZ. Anteriormente fundó The Affordable Green Company y se ha desempeñado como profesora y educadora en sostenibilidad. So, Siri, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much, Anna, for the lovely introduction. Let me start by sharing my screen. Right. So I hope the screen is visible. Let me start by...
No, we can see it yet. Yeah, now we can see it. Thank you, Siri.
Okay, great. So this is the login interface to our Net Zero certification platform. That's part of our website. If you are a first-time user, you can go ahead and sign up. It's a very, very simple sign-up process. I'm just going to go ahead and sign in here. And what you will see as soon as I sign in will be a whole list of projects that I have been working on. Right, you can see it, you can see multiple projects in the page. But when you are going to log in for the first time, this is what you'll see. It will ask you what is the Net Zero certification that you're looking to pursue. As you're aware, we have the certification available for buildings. It's also possible to pursue the certification for real estate portfolios and businesses. And for the ace of today's demo, I will walk you through a building project which is in its operations phase. Let's start with Alpha Tower 3310. Now, as soon as you start a project, you would see the Overview tab. This is where you can take control of your project submission towards the certification process. We will start with the basic info. And as the name suggests, this is where you provide all the basic information about your project. You can tell us the building title, the occupancy category. So this occupancy category is available as a whole drop-down list that you can pick from, but you also have the flexibility to type and tag it. You can then go on to tell us the target certification area and geolocate your project. So all of this is very simple. Now, what's interesting here is this particular question, which will ask you if this building is a part of. So let's say the project that you are working on is not a standalone, but it's an asset that belongs to maybe a larger portfolio, or perhaps it's one building that's part of a larger campus. Then you have the opportunity to tag this building to the larger entity. That's what I've done right here. You can then tell us if you'd like to keep your project data confidential and also upload photographs and videos of the project as well. The next part is where you onboard all of the team that's going to be helping in the decarbonization journey. So this can include everyone, right from the facility management team, the in-house sustainability team, your consulting partner, maybe even your HVAC MEP consultants. So just about everybody who will help in decarbonizing the operations can be brought on board right here. Assessment is the most critical part of the certification program. As you are aware, our certification is based on the GHG protocol, and it's going to help you calculate your emissions under scope 1, 2, and 3. Now, when you start the assessment, you will be starting by mentioning the reporting period, which we suggest to be 12 consecutive months. This is to ensure you are able to take into account any changes, or rather all of the changes that happens in the operations of the building because of the seasons in the year. You can report for multiple years. Now, for this project, you will see that there's data available for 6 different years. And it's you also have the flexibility to choose your own baseline. Moving on to the assessment itself, let's look at scope 1. Now, under scope 1, we have 3 questions. The first question is fuel consumption or stationary combustions. The second question is refrigerant fugitives. And the third question is your mobile combustions. So we'll start with the first question here. Now, you'd be starting with an empty row and clicking under the type of fuel. You can see that there's a whole drop-down list that you can pick from. Now, this consists of solid fuels, liquid fuels, gaseous, and biofuels. So let's pick one from here. Now, the minute I pick the fuel, you can see that the emission factor appears from our database, and all that you will have to enter is the consumption. And there you have the emissions computed immediately. So the emission factors in our database are from reputed sources such as US EPA, DEFRA, IPCC's Assessment Report 6, and any other region-specific emission factors that are publicly available. But let's say for your project, there's a more, maybe there's a more market-specific or even a site-specific emission factor. Then you have the flexibility to edit this right here. Let's just do that. So you can see I'm editing the emission factor. And the minute I do that, there is an icon that appears, and hovering over this, it will give you the default value from our database, and you can always compare it with the emission factor that you have now entered. We can look at one more set of calculations. Let's look at refrigerant fugitives. Again, here you would be starting with an empty row. Now, under the type of fuel, there's a whole drop-down list under the type of refrigerant. Let's pick one. So the minute I pick the refrigerant, the emission factor appears. Let's go ahead and enter the consumption. And there you have your emissions computed immediately. So this is how all of the calculations work. That was scope 1. Now, scope 2 is where you take into account all of the energy consumption in your building. This could include the non-renewable electricity that you're purchasing from the grid, if there is renewable energy that you are generating on site, or procuring it from an offsite source, then all of that data is gets captured right here under scope 2. Now, scope 3 is where it gets a little more interesting. There are several categories under which you can capture data. Now, depending on the typology of the project, the materiality of what needs to be captured could vary. And for this particular project, which is a commercial office tower, you can see that some data has been captured under waste disposal. Now, this is basically the waste that has been sent to the landfill. There was also data captured under waste incinerated, as well as the employee commute. At the end of this, we have a summary of scope emissions. This is basically a summation of your scope 1, 2, and 3. And then you can go on to tell us if there are any standards or best practices that you are looking to either implement or align your project with. This, again, is available as a drop-down list, but feel free to type and tag as well. You will then be expected to provide all documents that will help in substantiating the data that you have provided in the assessment. This would include documents like your bills, the invoices, BMS readings, any particular methodologies that you might have pursued for quantification of any of the categories. You can submit a document showcasing that methodology. And of course, if you have edited the emission factor for any of the inventories, you'll be expected to provide the source document for that emission factor as well. Now, all of this is what will help in the whole validation process towards the certification. Now, the next tab is Net Zero Plan. So what we've done now is we've completed the assessment, we've set a baseline, and we know where the project stands in terms of its emissions. It's now going to be important to prepare a decarbonization roadmap to get your project to net zero. So the Net Zero Plan is basically a narrative document that the project team prepares in collaboration with either the in-house sustainability team or the consulting partner. That will talk about the various strategies that are going to be implemented to get the project to net zero, the timeline by when the project wishes to achieve that net zero goal. And of course, if you are looking to purchase carbon offsets at some point to perhaps address your residual emissions, then all of that information gets included in the Net Zero Plan, and the same can be uploaded right here. Carbon offset is the next tab, where you basically come back and report the purchase of carbon offsets by telling us what was the planned purchase, what is the actual purchase that has occurred, and of course, a cumulative of the actual purchase is taken into account for the final calculation. Net zero milestones is the tab where you report the reduction in your emissions, right? So you calculated your emissions, you set a baseline, you prepared a decarbonization roadmap, and you're now going to be implementing these strategies in your project. Now, once the implementation has started, we could be looking at a reduction in your emissions annually. So you can come back and report that reduction right here by telling us what is the planned reduction, meaning what is it according to your net zero plan, and what is the actual reduction that has occurred after the implementation of the strategy. And of course, a cumulative of the actual reduction is considered for the final calculation. Now, the summary of emissions is a tab where you will see all your numbers right from the assessment up until your net zero milestone. So here again, you see your scope 1, 2, and 3, and a summation of that. These are the numbers from your baseline period. And of course, if you have purchased any carbon offsets, that gets accounted for. Any reduction in your emissions through the implementation of strategies, that gets included as well. And the final number that you see is now the emissions that the project has to avoid to get to net zero. So this summary of emissions can be downloaded as a spreadsheet or a PDF. It's also available as a link that you can copy and share. Now, the final tab here is project files. So all the documents and all the photographs that you are uploading in the various tabs gets centrally stored here for easy access. Now let's go back to the overview tab. Like I said, this is where you can take control and submit your project for the certificate, right? So you can see that the building and the team information has already been completed. And now that we completed the assessment, I'm going to go ahead and submit this for a review. And the minute I say next, there's a payment gateway that will open, following which you can submit your project for a third-party validation. Now, what I will also do is show you a project that's already gone through the validation process. So this is Alpha Office 1110. And from the overview tab, you can clearly see that the project has already achieved 2 certificates, the assessment and the net zero plan. So what happens is the minute you submit your project for the certificate, there's an independent third-party reviewer who's brought on board, and there's a very transparent interaction that can happen between the project team and the reviewer. All of this will get recorded right here in the comments. So here you can see that some questions have been raised by the reviewer, which gets addressed by the project team in real time. You can also share some documents to help the reviewer, to clarify queries raised by the reviewer. And at the end of this, when all such questions have been addressed, the reviewer will recommend the project for the certificate, at which point GNFZ will approve the certificate, and the certificate will be made available right here at the overview tab. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Siri. We're going to go through the questions now. We have Betty Avega in the chat that says, what are the most common challenges faced by Latin America projects pursuing net zero certification? ¿Cuáles los desafíos más comunes que se enfrenta Latinoamérica en proyectos que quieren participar en una certificación net zero?
Should I answer this one?
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay. Bueno, lo que pasa es, son muchos los desafíos, pero siempre hay la posibilidad de romper con las barreras, ¿no? Entonces, collecting data is probably the most challenging thing in Latin America. I don't know if Héctor agrees with me, but for example, in the US, you have plenty of EPDs, right? Environmental Product Declaration. And in South America, it's not that easy to have all your suppliers providing all the embodied carbon emissions you need. But for example, in Brazil, we have now a tool created by what they call the Sinduscom. It's a very well-known institution in Brazil. And they created a tool called C-Carbon, which helps collecting the data because they already have the necessary information regarding construction, right? It's important to say that as Global Network for Zero is applicable to many different scope of works, this is especially dedicated to construction. So you can use their data bank as a resource for you to calculate your emissions, right? And my last point regarding this question is that although you have this tool, C-Carbon, you can, it's just a tool to measure your emissions. So it's it could be used as a complement to what you're going to do to certify, with Global Network for Zero, because they do not have a certification process. They will only help you with the accountability. So they won't help you with the plan, with the certification, and with nothing else you need to do with the certification. But mainly you should look at what your country is doing, other than generalizing everything we need to look at when pursuing Global Network for Zero. So that's a few examples, but there are many situations, and you have, I always recommend to analyze case by case. This is the most responsible way of approaching a certification.
Sí, me gustaría complementar el comentario de David, que es muy cierto, pero también considero que es importante considerar este desafío o esta dificultad que existe en la mentalidad de nosotros aquí en Latinoamérica. En realidad es una barrera mental porque la mayoría de las personas piensa que alcanzar la certificación Net Cero o es muy complicada o va a costar mucho o simplemente pues se hace algo imposible. Y la gran realidad es que existen muchísimas herramientas que ayudan a que se pueda hacer un buen trabajo con la plataforma de Global Network for Zero. Y en el tema económico, la inversión no es como la gente a veces la puede dimensionar, sino todo lo contrario. Como es un trabajo pautado, en equipo, el propietario, el dueño del edificio puede escoger cuál de las 4 modalidades va a ser la primera en certificar Net Cero y ir trabajando conforme va logrando más objetivos. Entonces, en realidad, no deberían de haber muchas barreras o desafíos para que se pueda certificar. Simplemente es el dar el paso y descubrir que es mucho más fácil de lo que la gente piensa. Gracias.
Estoy de acuerdo, Héctor, no es tan difícil así. No, es solo un proceso de trabajo. Yo siempre he dicho, trabajamos hace 18 años con certificaciones. No es difícil. Para todo hay solución, ¿no? Hay un chiste que yo hago. Construyeron las pirámides, ¿no? They built the pyramids, no? The Eiffel Tower, no? They sent a rocket to the moon. I mean, how hard can it be to certify a project if you're really committed to do it, So it's not that hard, All you have to do is want to pursue it, and everything's gonna work out. Actually, it's really right when he says it's not difficult. That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Yes, as you said before, it's all about commitment. So now we go ahead with the next question that is from Valentina Vera and says, what technologies or design principles were most effective in reducing operational carbon emissions? Que es cuáles son las tecnologías y el diseño que principalmente ha sido efectivo en reducir las emisiones de carbono en la operación.
I had a wise professor that told me that it all depends, right? Because this is why you have to assess your project, because it could be an existing building, a new construction. You have to assess your building. This is why you have to carry out, the first assessment, así, el inventario, porque solo después de saber, qué son de dónde vienen las emisiones, es que es posible, trabajar, buscar oportunidades de reducir las emisiones. Esta es como yo veo la situación.
Yo pienso que unas buenas estrategias para que un edificio obtenga la certificación Net Cero empieza en el diseño. El diseño, mientras más pasivo sea, más ligado a aprovechar los recursos naturales como la iluminación, la ventilación natural, todas esas estrategias iniciales hacen que el edificio, y también definiendo una buena ubicación, no necesite tanto equipamiento que genere emisiones. Y si complementamos al diseño estrategias con un diseño de sistemas modernos, de bajo consumo, y elementos que permitan desde un principio considerar pequeñas plantas de tratamiento de agua o generación energética in situ, se pueden lograr grandes cosas y en realidad sin aumentar el presupuesto del proyecto, considerando de que ahora, en la actualidad, para construir un edificio oro, pues el costo adicional es el 2% o menos del 2%. Y con eso tenemos un gran avance que va a permitir alcanzar la certificación Net Cero sin que realmente sea algo oneroso, sino totalmente manejable.
I'll just add to what David and Hector have said. I'm not sure if they've already covered it. Apologies, because I'm not very fluent in Spanish. But to just tell you is the fact that every project is different, right? Each project has its own set of limitations. It has its own set of challenges that it comes with. And it's very, very important to take that first step in assessing, like David was mentioning. And it's only after that that we can determine and say exactly what kind of opportunities we can tap into for reducing or decarbonizing the operations of that particular project. Because sometimes what we've seen with the number of projects that we've worked so far is certain projects, it's very easy to target scope 2 first, because all that they will require is supplementing their energy requirement with renewables. And they're almost achieving a major reduction in their emissions. But sometimes there's a barrier there. There's a challenge that they face for implementing renewable supplementation, at which point they look at various other options as well. So I can very clearly state that one size does not fit all when we talk about what strategies can be implemented for projects. It has to be taken on a case-to-case basis, and that's where your assessment becomes extremely critical, and preparing that roadmap to get your project to net zero is also very, very critical.
Sriranjani, let me add something to what you're saying, because I believe that the audience should know that the Global Network for Zero is one of the smartest certifications I've ever seen, because there are plenty of people and companies trying to work with carbon reductions, monitoring, and you have like data set dashboards, but when you look in depth, at how Global Network for Zero was designed, you have a tool to monitor your emissions. You have a certification that helps you show other people that all your effort, is worth, it's not only about, monitoring how much you have impacted the environment, but also about turning all these emissions into something that can be turned into culture, because as I said, that what happened with LFRV, they knew they wanted to do something. They didn't know Global Network for Zero before. We were the ones who introduced the certification to them, and they learned so much from the process, that it helped them understand why you have to assess, your company, your process, your building, whatever you decide that it's a scope of work. It helps you, figure out where are your opportunities. And when you think about, well, I will have to plan, I will have to reduce, I have to compensate my emissions, it also sounds so hard to do. But when you think that you can get a certification for each phase of the process, and get a certification, in the end of every cycle, you realize that this is going to turn into a huge educational tool, into a huge marketing tool. This is going to add value to the way your company, or your building, your project, whatever you have in hand, no, you're gonna turn it into the most powerful communication tool you can get. I always say that certification are communications tool. So I always recommend that people pursue certification. But especially, I know I'm talking too much but this is exactly how I feel about the Global Network for Zero. It's an outstanding tool, and if you didn't try it yet, no, you're gonna be overwhelmed with how much you can accomplish with it. That's it. Thank you.
David, solamente quisiera agregar otro tema importante. La certificación Net Cero de Global Network for Zero es una estrategia increíble, sobre todo ahora que las empresas tienen que hacer declaraciones ambientales y cumplir con compromisos normativos ESG, ¿no? Ambientales, sociales y gobernanza. Al empezar un proceso de certificación Net Zero, la empresa va a tener suficientes insumos de conocimiento de cómo está estructurada la gobernanza de su empresa y cómo está afectando en los otros factores, en el factor ambiental, en el factor social, porque va a ver tangiblemente cuáles son sus impactos. Entonces se convierte en una herramienta de cumplimiento normativo. Y ahora, en la actualidad, donde se viene eso acelerando con bastante rapidez, pues va a ser una salvaguarda para que las empresas puedan sobresalir y cumplir en sus declaraciones ambientales de manera efectiva y tangible. Gracias.
Thank you so much for your intervention. I just wanted to thank you for joining us today. This GNFZ explanation of how Latin America is leading the way in net zero innovation. We hope you leave inspired and ready to drive sustainable change. And at CES, we deeply appreciate having you join us today in this important space for knowledge and sharing today. And I also have a special thank you, Sarah, for helping us coordinating all the activity for today, everything, so we could have you all here today. Muchas gracias a todos por estar el día de hoy aquí. Como siempre les digo, esta es una información muy valiosa para todos ustedes. Estén conectados en los próximos webinars que vamos a tener. Vi también que les dejaron en el chat los expositores las redes de LinkedIn a las que pueden permanecer conectados, así que por favor no pierdan contacto. And thank you so much again for your time.
Gracias por todos. Gracias, Sara, Sri, Ana Paula y David, y con todos los asistentes. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias también, es un honor. Thank you all. See you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Sri. Thank you, Sarah. Bye.
Bye.